ओम ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्री गुरु परमानंदम वंदे स्वानंद विग्रहम यस्य सनिध्यमात्रेण चिदानंदाय तनु। In the last class we were discussing verse number 12. षट्चक्रम षोडशाधारम त्रिलक्ष्यम व्योम पंचकम स्वदेहे ये न जानन्ति कथम सिद्ध्यन्ति योगिनः. It's a beautiful point to observe. Just I glossed over stating Sarchakra, Sodasa Adhara, Dilaksha, and 5 space. So that is how we looked in. But if we try to see these verses little carefully, that's something really interesting. Why? As it is going to talk in details some other time, like that we saw also, like how each chakra has its, Bija mantra. So it has its own petals. So dalam, why it called petals dalam? Because the lotus petal, how it looks, that is the shape it creates. And remember, generally it is related to susumna and the energy that is created over there. And especially, as a third chakra will be discussed, but I would like to say something. This is Sodasa Adhara. So this 16 adharas, the supports to be understood, and also if you want to spend some time you can spend. It's really amazing. So it starts because, as all of you know already, Sarchakra, that which starts with Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Agya, over. Whereas when we talk about Sodasa Adhara, so we start with Padangushta. So Padangushta means the fingers that is on your legs. So toes, ityartha. Actually, when you start visualizing this Padangushta, you are supposed to gaze at your, closing your eyes. That's why he says Dvilaksha. So Dvilaksha is, one is external, other one is internal. So when you start gazing at, while closing your eyes, focusing your mind very steadily and try to keep the eyes or the vision on the, tip of the toes. And interestingly, because these are the secret supposed to be not practiced. Generally, this sort of text they don't teach. What they do is, because you people learn everything, okay, you know everything, but practice nothing. So chapter is over, and right time nothing will come to you either. Okay, this is the sad part of it. However, so when the person that starts focusing on this toes. So then what happens? You will discover your mind will be stable. The steadiness of the mind becomes easier. Just focusing on the prathama adhara, and that prathama adhara is nothing but we saw is padangushta iti, toes, tip of the toes. And once you start stabilize, so you will feel the jyoti. So the jyoti here, because once you start stabilize your mind, the energy that is being created, so that energy becomes a flame. In fact, the whole yoga practice is playing with the flame. That's why we say never play with the fire, means never play with a yogi. So whoever is holding the flame, that person becomes a fire called yogi. That's why we say very carefully, never ever play with a yogi with fire, because you are literally playing with fire. That's why when I was taking this text today, I was lost completely. So I have to take the class because I was really, completely I was lost. And this is something really nice to go through. That's why I thought, let me share. And once you do this, what happens is you will discover that there will be elevation in you. So once this energy elevates, also any moment it will fall down. It's not that it will be always elevated. That is what yogis fall down very fast. Again, they will come up. But luckily, once you have tasted the nectar, it is exactly like Tanjore doll. So you push any time, again it will come back. That is the beauty. In fact, I had a very good access. I was looking at few other people, and especially with the literature in Odisha, we have this called Pancha Sakhas, 5 people. That time they were very popular. And among them, even though one Jagannath Das, who translated Bhagavatam into Odia, who is very popular in Odisha, but somehow I personally liked, I'm talking about in teenage, not Jagannath Das, even though I was reading Bhagavatam, but I liked very much Balaram Das, another person, because who was a great yogi. And because he was yogi, the saying goes, he could challenge Lakshmi regularly. In fact, he used to call her a squint lady because she had a squint eye, a squint lady. This is the language he used. Because of this yoga power, let us not get into that. Then once you really develop this, then the next adhara would be called that muladhara. That's why that name is Chakra, that Mooladhara itself. So from there, when you bring Mooladhara, what happens generally? In Mooladhara, you will discover you will generate the fire and you will stabilize the fire. The energy that is converted into fire. Now, by focusing on Mooladhara, you stabilize, a sadhaka stabilize the fire in the body. That's why a yogi cannot move body unnecessarily. That's why we do not talk yoga shastra openly too much, because the topic is as such. The moment you listen to, your mind becomes absorbed, provided if you are ready for it. And once you stabilize, then need to be taken up, goes to third one, becomes Guhyadhara. So Guhyadhara, which is little up, there what happens when a person starts focusing on this Guhyadhara, there you will discover the energy will fluctuate. So there you got access into expanding whenever you want, also contracting. So the expansion and contraction happens there, and you will have chance to mastery over there. So that whenever naturally contraction takes place, you can expand. Whenever naturally expansion takes place, you can contract. It's a very nice thing to observe. And once you know this trick, then what happens in any given situation, you can change your energy the way you want. So that you don't have to depend upon anybody or anything in life. And from there, little up comes little lower than, you can say, your lower abdomen, called Vajra Garbha Nadi. So this Vajra Garbha Nadi, one of the main thing that is there. In fact, sometimes we say that is the place nearer to that the Kandam exists. So Kandam means the source of energy, which we'll be seeing later on. So this Vajra Garbhanadi supposed to be most powerful place. And when a person starts focusing on that, then what happens? The person will be able to grow up in such a way that the ahankara will be managed. So that means that sense of insecurity, that without any reason I am being challenged, will not take place. Because my ahankara pops up when I feel, I sense some type of challenges. Now, here, the ahankara, the ego, is being managed, and you allow that energy to pierce. In fact, incidentally, I can say when this energy passing through one chakra and through the petals, because the chakra is covered with petals, and when it passes through different chakras, it creates a sound, and that sound is bija mantra of that petal. And physically, is, either you make it or fake it, like that. Even if you don't understand that whether it has pierced or not, whether you could hear the sound or not, but at least visualize, okay, in these petals, these letters are there. That's why when we do matrukanyasa, we try to establish that. So now you understand why the alphabets are being placed in different locations, especially all these chakras differently. Because as it happens naturally, as the energy starts coming up, it starts piercing. And while passing through one chakra, especially all these petals that are in that given chakra, it makes a specific sound. And those sounds resonates with alphabets. And those alphabets are nothing but called Bija Mantra. And after this comes Uddiyana Bandhadhara. When we make Uddiyana Bandha, what happens? That lower abdomen region. So that is in that when a person does it, that's why we say while doing this thing, that's why we say Paschimottanasana is one of the best method to practice every day. In fact, this Paschimottanasana, don't ask me what is Paschimottanasana, okay? Then I'll stop the class, I'll say, okay, Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam, okay? So, then when a person starts practicing Paschimottanasana, now in that Paschimottanasana, what happens? This Uddiyana Bandhadhara and Muladhara, this connection takes place so strongly and so conveniently. Then what happens? The person definitely will be able to manage the impurities that is in the stomach. Because as long as there is some impurity in stomach, that long the person cannot practice yoga either. That's why we have sat karma. And interestingly, when a person practices this Paschimottanasana regularly, you will discover the person's digestive fire will be stronger also. Because whole thing we make sure that hunger. That's why if you take any child to a doctor, doctor will ask the first question, how is his or her hunger, child's hunger? If the child's hunger is perfect, don't worry. Everything will be taken care in due course of time. So if the hunger is not good, that means something is seriously wrong. So this alignment is being done through this method. That's why Paschimottanasana is one of the key point to align my stomach, incidentally. Then from this Uddiyana Bandhadhara, next one, sixth one would be Nabhi Mandaladhara. So little up the navel region. So now when you look at here this Nabhi Mandaladhara, what it does, here generally being a sensible point, we make sure take the help of mantra. And generally, a yogi takes the help of pranava. So the onkar. And when it starts resonating with onkar, there, interestingly, the person will start feeling or hearing different type of nadas. So that's why you call nada brahma. And this concept very nicely being explained in Jagannatha Sanskriti. Daru Brahma called Nabhi Brahma. So the Jagannatha is being called as a Brahma. So they called him as Daru Brahma. So the Brahma is in the form of wood. And where, so physically they will explain, they will say that is in Navidesham, in the Naval region. Very nice concept when I look at especially Vedantic teaching and Jagannatha feature matches like Apani, Apada. So there is no leg, there is no hand. It's a nice concept, okay? So all the description of Brahman in Vedanta matches Lord Jagannath. So coming back here, so this pranava mantra is being done, then nadas the person is able to come across. And what happens is the person from this Navi Mandala should take up to seventh one called Hrudayadhara. So Hrudaya means heart. Adharam, so that means Hrudayadhara, little up. And interestingly, when the person takes to this Hrudayadhara, definitely there the person starts expanding. So when you say that you want to expand your heart, you want to accommodate, this expansion or accommodation becomes easier. And here, when you start along with this retaining the breathing, there are a few other tricks are involved in this also. Then you discover you accommodate anything and everything. That's why Lord Shiva, being Adiyogi, could drink poison that came out of this Samudra Mantana churning the ocean. You understand the logic, how it works? Because anything and everything can be digested. That's why Lord Shiva accommodates anybody and everybody. He doesn't have any problem at all. Okay, when some problem comes, he runs away once in a while, okay? But very rarely, but he doesn't care. Let it happen. What can I do? However, then comes from Hridayadhara, the eighth one becomes called Kantadhara, the throat. So Kantadhara plays a big role because when a person try to take this energy and along with the Vayu up, there both Ida and Pingala, Chandra and Suryanadi, they get joined. And interestingly, that any unresolved issues are there, gets resolved there. Any unresolved issue, this is the effect. So that's why we say very carefully, in thousands of lives, I have millions of, or you can say innumerable life, I have innumerable number of unresolved issues in me. Some of them are in forefront, some of them are not. And it is not possible to address them one after another. Yes, what bothers me, I can address. But problem is, when I address one, I discover another one. It is exactly like, just to change seriousness of the topic, like Puja Swamiji used to give this example that the person goes to a psychologist, psychologist, like I am a cat. Then with the in front of a mirrors, being a cat, and so look, this is a cat. Yes. Now can you say that both of you are one and same? No. Then are you cat? No. Then look, me and you, I am human being, you are human. Yes. Do you understand? Yes. I understood that I am no more a cat. He goes back again after a few days. Same problem never comes out. What happens? Again they brought him back, and what happened? Yes, I understood that day that I am not a cat. Then what is the problem again? Yes, I know that I am not a cat, but the street dogs, they do not know that I am a cat. Joke apart, let us come back to our topic. So here, there are innumerable unresolved issues in me. In fact, I would say each unresolved issue creates a disease in me. If I want to put psychologically very carefully, each unresolved issue creates a disease in me. That's why we have this aspect called avishapam, curse. So what is curse? Curse is nothing that which I could not resolve. And other person becomes so different, gives a curse. That person, whatever goes through, let us talk the person who is being cursed. Now, what happens is, if the person is not able to resolve that curse, definitely that has to fructify. And whenever curse fructifies, does it create some type of affliction, disease or not. There are many incidents in Puranas and in our day-to-day life. So in short, all or instead of all, each of our unresolved issues manifest in the form of a disease. That's why if you have any disease, especially if you go to any homeopathy doctor, interestingly, they will try to find out your family background. Not present day, those who have studied, I have seen in India, first they will, when you go, homeopathy doctor, they will not ask you, who are you, what are you, your family background, what you are allergic, what is not, what is your behavior. They will try to study everything. After that, the water they give, there is no power at all, but it works, okay? And interestingly, this is my version, okay? They keep adding water, okay? And more they keep adding after that mother teacher, more it becomes powerful. And there is a law also, okay? I was talking to one doctor, Swamiji, there is a law. So you have to understand that law. I said, okay, I don't want to know any law. I want to know it works, okay? That's enough. Joke apart. So here, I will be able to resolve, that's the most important point, called in Kantadhara. So from Kantadhara, ninth one is called Kantha Mooladhara. So the Kantha Adhara here, so Kantha Mooladhara, little, inside, where the Kantha, the region starts, the throat. Now, there what happens, when I start doing this, definitely, there I start enjoying my energy, what we call say, I start enjoying my amruta, the nectar. In fact, in that time, the person will not really require for any water, nothing. The moment you just, as though you are, having your nectar, and the taste is so nice, and in fact, that is the amruta. And enjoys like anything. And from there, the person takes to Jivha Muladhara. So, Jivha means your tongue, okay? So that means here goes Jivha. So, take to the tongue. And again, it has got Jivha Adhobhaga. So the Jivha, where from Jivha comes, the tongue comes. Then also that down below Jivha portion. So both are called 10 and 11. And here, when a person focuses on this Jivha both, the person will be able to resolve all the disease. And of course, then comes after that Urdha Danta Mooladhara. So all the teeth, especially the top portion teeth, so that region. And once a person starts doing that, interestingly, what happens now, the disease that is being resolved, now the person feels healthy. Because disease removing is one aspect. Feeling healthy means the person is stable, the stability. So the person is elevated. And once that happens, next one called 13, Nasika Agradhar, and 14, Nasika Muladhar. So when we look at this two especially, here what happens? The person starts dwelling upon the energy in such a way. Now there the Jyoti, the flame arrives. And interestingly, the flame is sometimes different based on the tattva that is associated. So when Prithvi tattva is associated one color, when Vayu tattva is associated another color, Akasa tattva another color. So that's why earlier it talked about Panchakasa, Panchavyoma iti. And interestingly, when this thing happens, now comes the 15 is Dhru Madhyadhara, and the last one 16 is called Netradhara. So there what happens? If Dhru Madhyadhara, between the both these eyebrows, now here the person mind definitely becomes very stable, and the elegance, the brightness of Surya takes place. And finally, when it becomes to goes to Netradhar, we say very carefully that especially we try to put two fingers to make sure, then we'll be able to see this, all the 7 colors. So in short, when a person knows all this is Sodasadhara and starts working with it, definitely the person is able to align the body. Only when body is aligned, mind will be aligned. More of it we'll see. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, all of you.